I'm now excited to sit down with Representative Maxine Dexter, who represents Oregon's 3rd District. Thank you so much for joining us. Please give her a round of applause. Nice to have you here after Climate Week. Thank you. I'm wondering, Representative, if you can talk about, you were trained as a physician, and I wonder how that impacts what you're trying to do in Congress right now.
Yeah, and first, thank you, Danielle and Food Tank and everyone here for having me. This is such an important conversation, so really grateful for everyone's interest. It's great to see a full room here. So yes, I am a pulmonary critical care doc in Oregon. And you know what really is very clear is exactly what Congressman Jackson was just talking about, that what we are feeding our families is making us sick, whether it is diabetes, where people don't have access to healthy food or don't have time and they're eating simple sugars and other things, soda that is indirectly subsidized in this country. We have a lot that we need to do. And as a physician, the vast majority of really sick patients that I saw, we would say, it's the usual diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, and plus or minus COPD. Those were the patients I saw in the ICU. And disproportionately, if you are obese, you have worse outcomes. And so we are not just making our people sick, we are increasing the cost of healthcare. We know that about $1.1 trillion of cost in our healthcare system's $5 trillion expenditure is directly related to poor nutrition.
And Representative Jackson talked about this in his remarks that, poor folks are suffering the most from a lot of this. And so I wonder how you think about increasing access to healthy food, not just having those grocery stores and farmers markets, but having people allowing people to have the ability to afford those products.
Yeah, without question. And this is a bipartisan issue. I think that there are a lot of things about what the MAHA movement and other things are saying that, frankly, I agree with. And those are fighting words in a lot of the more liberal parts of my district. But I will just tell you that food is medicine, and we need to treat it with the priority that it deserves. Making sure that we're talking about urban farms, planting trees along the streets and harvesting so that people have access, but also not having food deserts, as Congressman Jackson talked about. We can have subsidized grocery stores that actually have healthy food, not just subsidizing corn and other simple products that then end up in those, ultra-processed foods. So we are making investments as a country that lead directly to this outcome. And way back in the 90s, I remember reading about the slow food movement and the ways that Europe was really transforming how it thinks about food. We can do this. We just need the collective will to do it. And thank you all for having that.
Yeah, this room speaks hopefully to that collective will. I want to go back to, your experiences as a doctor. And Senator Marshall talked about this. He's a doctor. Dari talked about this. He's a doctor. But medical schools are not preparing all of you to go into the world and speak about nutrition in productive ways to your patients.
Yeah. I have a couple things, and these are not meant to be fighting words, but I really believe that every person, every professional in the healthcare system should be practicing at the top of their scope. And nutritionists are not they can't bill in the same way. They are not valued in the same way. I can speak about nutrition, but you need the nutritionists at the bedside talking to our patients. They're the people who should be having that conversation. And so what we need to do as a system is also value their expertise and their time and pay for them to be there. It is a much better use of their time because they're better at it. And it's also, I'm more expensive, quite frankly. So I should be doing the things that are at my top of scope. So the way we get there is to stop using fee-for-service medicine as a method for payment. We have to incentivize the outcomes that we want. Keeping people healthy means that we put nutritionists in the hospitals and in the clinics. It means that we have community health workers that are making home visits and finding out where people are shopping and what they have in their cupboards. It means that we actually liberate the system to do the right thing for our community in a very culturally competent way. Not everyone should be eating the same foods, and we need to recognize that. So I do not endorse medical schools, spending more time training us to talk about it. You got lots of people here. We need to pay them to do it.
Absolutely. The round of applause for the nutritionist, please. I'm back to the issue of ultra processed foods. What would you like to see moving forward on this issue in Congress?
Frankly, we have to stop subsidizing it, whether it's corn or whether it's palm oil or, maybe I know that that's not in our country, but mostly. But we have a lot of choices that we can make, whether it's the double up food bucks for fresh fruit and vegetables at farmers markets. We have to also incentivize local food supply being used like we have done in our public school system in Oregon. There is always like the vegetable of the month and the fruit of the month that goes on the tray, and it's fresh, and kids start learning that it's actually grown in their communities and learning, how to choose what kinds of fruits and vegetables you like by actually tasting them rather than just looking at them. We have to incentivize with subsidies, I think. People don't have resources right now. It's too expensive to buy groceries. SNAP, we were talking about SNAP benefits. Like, it's much more feasible to feed your family high calorie, concentrated processed food on that budget than it is to go have fresh fruits and vegetables. I grew up in a poor working class family. I never saw a fresh fruit or vegetable growing up. It was all canned, sometimes frozen, except for maybe at Thanksgiving, which was usually cranberry sauce out of a can. Like, I just didn't know that potatoes didn't come in a box that you added hot water to. So I think, and I know I see surprised faces out there, but this is real for so many of our patients and our families. Like, they don't see fresh fruits and vegetables because they're going to the bodega on the corner that doesn't really have that available to them, and they're paying too much because they don't have access to transportation to get to the more affordable Costco's or whatever that you can buy higher quality, higher nutrition value fruits and vegetables. So we need to liberate SNAP. We need to incentivize grocery stores in our communities to actually have the fruits and vegetables available. We need those bodegas to have subsidies to get those fruits and vegetables there. And once people want them, they're going to find them. But you have to have the market demand for those things to then drive production. That's not what we have right now.
I'm glad you brought up production, and Dari and Representative Jackson mentioned the role of farmers earlier.
Yeah.
Food is medicine does not work without farmers.
Right.
And I wonder how, your ideas around supporting more small and medium scale farmers to really support food as medicine.
So I'm a doctor, so I'm sure that Angie Craig and others will have a lot more thought out ideas, but I represent a rural part of our state, and we have orchard fruits for the most part, and those producers cannot sell their cherries and their pears and their apples in local community grocery stores because they're too expensive to produce. So we also need our farm workers and agricultural workers to make a living wage. So if we're going to have to spend more money to produce these goods, then we need to put again, the farm subsidies where the high quality, nutritious food comes from, and those small farmers, those local community, urban farms. I do think we need to invest in that. And subsidies are not forever. We just need to drive demand and drive production to the point where people can do the work and get what they need out of the production. And whether it's that again, Angie Craig and others would have a lot more thoughtful answers on this, but we have to pay farmers to produce the fruits and vegetables that we need. They can't be sending them across the world when we need them here, and figuring out a way to be able to afford them. It's better for all of us. It's certainly environmentally more sustainable. I don't begrudge China having cherries and Japan having the apples and pears that we produce, for sure, but we also need to be able to afford them right in our backyards where our community can't literally afford to buy the things that they drive past growing as they go to school and work.
Fantastic point to end on. Thank you, Representative Dexter.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.